Hi, and welcome to S for Science. And tonight you're going to die. Or maybe not. That will depend on the conclusions you get to after this video, of how aware you are about your consciousness. Let's begin then with the idea that gave birth to this video. A vital dilemma that we'll have to face in a few years. Many people know the movie The Matrix. Be careful, spoilers ahead. But for those who haven't seen it, it's basically about a plot that happens in a hypothetical Earth that has been conquered by an AI who has human farms, and it uses these human farms as a power source. To control those humans, given that they must solve the problem that they have awareness, what that AI does is put their minds into a computer program named Matrix, which simulates a universe and a life identical to ours, preventing people from realizing that they are trapped and living in an unreal reality. Matrix is obviously a sci-fi movie, but it's probable and almost certain that in a relatively near future we will be able to create something very similar. I'm not talking about an AI that ends up conquering us, but about the concept. But of us being able to develop a technology that allows conscious and aware living beings to live inside of it. Beings that would live their life inside of a computer. And that is pretty likely to be developed. A virtual world with beings that could be simple computer programs made by the computer, such as the characters created in a video game, like The Sims. Or they could be real-life people that put themselves inside of a computer. In this way, introducing their mind. And here's where we need to stop to think. A matrix would theoretically allow us to put our minds inside of a computer. Inside of a simulation. A simulation that could be as real as the real world. But once there, maybe we could be immortal. We could live a better life than the one we're living now, because that world could be whatever we want. In fact, there could be a matrix programmed for us to be immortal. Maybe there could be some in which dying is not an option, in which once inside your life could be forever, without ever being able to choose to die. And this made me ask on Twitter the following question a few years ago. If you were offered eternal life in a healthy body, would you accept? Think it through. Remember that you will live forever. 1,249 people voted, and to my unexpected surprise, yes won. Meaning that most people would rather live eternally without ever being able to stop living. Wouldn't that take away our will to live? Wouldn't we stop valuing life? There is a very interesting concept related to this, named the Matryoshka brain, which consists of a hypothetical machine with immense computing capacity, able to create a matrix and harvest energy by itself. It is said that this type of technology could be made and developed by an alien civilization that is advanced enough, and that would be, for example, forever orbiting a galactic nucleus or a star to obtain energy to maintain a lot of consciousnesses. This megastructure would contain the minds of every living being that someday were part of that alien civilization. But they decided to leave their bodies to live eternally in an ideal world. It is believed that this is one of the reasons why we haven't found any alien civilizations when we look up to the universe, because every single one realizes that the best choice is an artificial world inside of a computer, of a simulation, or a matrix where they can put their minds inside and live there an ideal life. Then space would be full of supercomputers wandering in the cosmic emptiness, with the minds of millions of civilizations who died millions of years ago. And that's kind of logic, because what would you prefer? Accepting your species' downfall or going with them to live another life, even if it isn't real, but an ideal eternal life? A situation that we will come to face sooner or later. And this, with a Twitter question, gives us the next dilemmas. Is eternal life a wonder or a torture? What makes us keep on living? Nevertheless, these are subjects for another video. But however, this would be something that we would think about when we put our minds inside of a virtual world. But these are not the biggest problems that we will face at the time of copying our minds inside of a computer. Did you notice I said copying our minds and put them inside of a computer? The word copy is really important because a brain scan wouldn't be enough. You would have a very serious dilemma because you would make a copy. You would simply copy your brain and generate inside of the program a being like you, who would effectively think that he is you, who would think that everything went fine and that you got inside with no problems. But the one who offered to scan his brain, you, would still be alive. Like throwing a coin, you could have good or bad luck. And maybe after the brain scan you would wake up in the matrix, or maybe you would have bad luck and you would wake up in the same spot in which you made the scan. An option would be killing you before you realized that you were meant to stay on Earth, allowing the Matrix one to be the only conscious copy. But the dilemma is even more complex. The day in which the first person gets in the Matrix, that person that exists inside the virtual reality would still be the same person? Well, first, you need to understand what is being yourself. We're made of atoms, protons, neutrons, and electrons, combined in the right way so you can feel like you. Feel. Be conscious of yourself. But do we know what consciousness is? Well, we know perfectly what we're made of. If, for example, we take someone and put them in a teleporter, we would get in the other side of the teleporter someone exactly the same as the one that went on the other side, with the same number of atoms perfectly combined. But if instead of teleporting we made a copy? What if we copy the person? In this case we would have two completely identical people, atom by atom. But they would be different in something. There would be two different minds, each one with its own consciousness. Each one would see the other person as a different person. And this is a big problem, because even having in both sides exactly the same thing, we have two different people. And what makes them different is consciousness, and that is something unmeasurable. They're the same, but there's something that makes them different, and that something doesn't seem to exist. They have the same atoms, the same structure, the same order, but they are different, which implies that at the moment science doesn't know what consciousness is. But if you're confused already, I'm going to make it worse. How can you be sure that other people are conscious? And with other people, I'm also referring to AIs. If right now an artificial intelligence says that it has consciousness, how do we know if it's true or not? We're far from knowing what consciousness is and how it behaves. Or maybe not that much. Let's open a parenthesis. Because quantum physics have something to say. There's a phenomenon called quantum teleportation, which allows to teleport something called the quantum states of particles. And the most interesting part is that you have to destroy the quantum state of the particle that you want to teleport. In other words, you can't make an exact copy of those particles. That's why if someday we find out that consciousness is based on the quantum states of particles of the brain, something that we don't have an idea of, that would imply that there could be two different consciousnesses in the same body, or two different beings in two exact copies. And then we could say that definitely there can't be two of you. Parenthesis closed. Let's go back to the matter, because even if what I just explained could effectively solve the problem of the two you, there's still the biggest problem of all when getting into a virtual world. And it's basically that you would die in the process. Let's remember the concept of the teleporter. It's simple. You take a bunch of atoms and you teleport them to a far place, where you can reorder them in the same way as they were before. But this process implies the following. During the teleportation, the atoms disarray and convert into energy, in photons, in light, to then become atoms again and rearrange. In other words, you stop existing for some moments, either by teleporting or going into a matrix thanks to a computer. There's a cut in your consciousness. You stop feeling for a few seconds. Isn't that dying? Doesn't that make teleporting machines and entering the matrix, suicide machines? When you teleport, someone's going to appear who would think it's you, who would live thinking that it was you, who would have your memories, when in reality you died in the process of teleportation, because you had a cut in your consciousness. Because your life is nothing more than that. It's nothing more than a constant flow of your consciousness. Despite the fact that we have a physical body, the only thing that is ours is our consciousness. What makes you be you and not me is your consciousness. You are your consciousness. The same thing as with the teleporters would happen if you put your mind into a simulation inside of a computer or inside of a matrix. Imagine yourself sitting on a bed in a hospital. They tell you that they're going to proceed to put you the helmet to make the brain scan. And in some way they assure you that there is no danger of making a copy who stays here on Earth. Even so, would you do it? Would you accept, even knowing that to enter the matrix, you would have that cut in your consciousness? That for a moment you would stop existing, since your consciousness would stop existing while it moves to another place? Cuts in the consciousness. At this point, you realize that there's no need to get into a matrix to die. It's enough with just a cut in your consciousness, and that happens every night. That's right, when we sleep, and more specifically in the phase where we don't dream, there is a cut in your consciousness. During some minutes, you're no longer you. You're not aware of anything. You can't be sure that the one that will get up will be the same that fell asleep. During those minutes, you're the same as what you were before being born. Nothing. And yes, the next day you'll get up as if nothing happened. But that's because consciousness will reactivate. A consciousness that, yes, is the same as the one from the person who fell asleep. It has been cut for an amount of time. Everything that you really are, and that thing that we call the unmeasurable part of your body, the one making us different from possible clones, has stopped existing for some minutes. The same as in the teleporters and in the entrance of the matrix. So we could say that every night someone dies, to give place to the birth of someone new the next morning, who thinks he's the same, but he's not. Even if it sounds creepy, that's how it is. You were born this morning, but tonight you will die. I'm sure that this sounds strange, but remember, we're talking about human consciousness, a mind, a feeling that we are the owners of our own decisions, a fake illusion of free will. Because as it's proved on physics, if you know all the variables of a system, you can predict exactly what will happen. And if we knew all the variables of the moment in which the Big Bang happened, we would know exactly everything that will happen. Everything you think you will choose will be no more than a fake illusion of choice, because this was already meant to happen. And if you're thinking that what I'm saying is not true, well, you have to know this thought was already meant to happen too. We think that we have the ability of, in our mind, do and think what we want, of being how we want, of being conscious. But the truth is, everything was already written by the beginning of the universe, with the initial movement vectors that the particles had. So then, does consciousness really exist? And if we understand consciousness as the only thing that is truly ours, as our being does not depend on the atoms that we are made of, we could say that instead of existing during decades, as we thought, we do it for only a day? Or, in the end, what if we don't exist, as our consciousness is just an effect of predestinated randomness? Thank you very much for watching the video, and goodbye.